Look at the camera.
Okay.
Hey y'all, this is Boston Chris with East Texas Music. I'm here with living legend Unkle Dallas and 2015 Lifetime Achievement nominee. Dallas, how you doing today?
I'm hot, brother.
Yes, you are. Tell us about what you got coming up with this new band that you're talking about.
Well, it's an exciting band, a variation of all sorts of music, and we pump real hard, and we're here to please you, and come on out and dance.
And that's the Romeo Bush Band. They're going to be taking bookings starting right now. And y'all remember, support local music, and ETX rocks.
That's right.
Covering music-related content of all genres. If it filters through Eastern Texas, it's fair game. Y'all bring it. From Texarkana down to the coast and Dallas down to Houston and everything in between. We are ETX ROCKS! Hit the brakes. Cut.
Yeah, baby, Chris, this is Elvis Presley. I'm over here with my good friend Unkle Dallas. And I was wanting to give you a call, baby, about getting on the love train with you, booking the band. Hey, boss. It's Unkle Dallas.
That's right, it was Unkle Dallas. That was a message he sent me, a voicemail, in November of 2015. I've kept the message because I like to listen to how much of a goofball he was, how crazy he was, and how much he enjoyed life. This is a brand new episode of the ETX ROCKS podcast with yours truly, Boston Chris. And this is going to be a little bit of a different kind of episode. This one is one that we're calling Remembering Unkle Dallas. Unkle Dallas, who was a East Texas icon and legend in my view and a lot of other people's views in the music community here in the East Texas region, passed away in January of 2016. He's mentored so many different musicians here in the East Texas area, from Monty Pittman to Dwayne Probst to Ricky Lynn Gregg. The list goes on and on and on. And we're going to be sitting down with a couple of Unk's longtime musician friends. We're going to be recording this episode right here at the Lone Star Music School in Longview. And I hope you guys will enjoy this conversation with three people who knew Unkle Dallas very, very well. And sit back and enjoy some great stories. I'm sure we'll have some laughs. There'll probably be some emotional periods throughout this broadcast, this episode of ETX ROCKS. But I hope you'll enjoy it, and we'll get right with his friends right now. All right, guys, so I'm sitting here with three longtime friends of Unkle Dallas, and I'm also sitting here with my girlfriend, Louise. This is going to be her first time being recorded here on the ETX ROCKS podcast, and she's kind of going to add a kind of an outsider's view into Unkle Dallas, maybe some curiosity, and try to keep us four nuts on track as best she can. This episode will be the first episode that we have that's going to be completely sponsor free. This will not have a sponsor on this episode. We are not selling anything in this episode, and we will keep it promo free as well. For those of you out there who have listened to multiple episodes, you know how this normally works. We usually talk to a musician, we talk about their career, their life, and then we try to tell people how they can be in contact with that band or that musician or that artist, where they can find them, what albums they have out, etc. That's not what we're going to be doing here. I will be promoting the three guys across from me, though, because I believe that Unkle Dallas would want these three guys to have their moment in the sun. As you guys know out there, Unkle Dallas was a huge proponent of local music. He was a guy that loved his brothers and sisters in the music community more than any other. And he would want you folks out there to know the association that these three guys in front of me have. So without further ado, I will introduce y'all to these three guys. The first guy to sit into my left is the godfather of East Texas music, Mr. Terry Salyer. Terry Salyer is a member of the Alan Fox Band, and I don't believe there's a single musician in the entire East Texas region that has not heard his name or his bass playing or his percussion or guitar playing or whatever over the years.
Heck yes.
So we're very excited to have Terry here. Sitting across from me is the president of Taz Bowl Records, Mr. Ricky Khoury himself, my self-proclaimed hand percussionist of the year. He will sit in with anybody, even if he's not asked. Just remember that if he shows up with his bongos, he is going to be playing on that night, and you can't stop him. That's why they call him Taz Bowl. Otherwise known as Shooter, that's Mr. Ricky Khoury. And sitting to my right is the electric guitar extraordinaire, a genius in his own right, Mr. Rio Wallace, the lead guitarist for the Rock Band of the Year in 2015 teaser. If anybody has seen Rio play live, then you know what you would be missing out on if you hadn't. These are just three of many, 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 many friends that Unkle Dallas has accrued over the years, and I want to thank each of you individually and collectively for sitting down with me today.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for doing this.
You're very welcome. Louise, do you have anything you want to start with?
No.
Louise has absolutely nothing, y'all. She's on her game. I got to tell y'all, we've had a 14-hour day today. And we just got through watching these three guys as well as others jam here at the Lone Star Music School. And I think we'll start with Ricky Khoury because, for those of you who may not know out there, a couple of things about Ricky. Number one, when Unk did pass away, Ricky was given the unenviable task of trying to put out a memorial befitting of a man of Unkle Dallas's stature. And as an outsider looking in, I have to tell you, sir, that you did an incredible job with that memorial.
Thank you. It took a small village of people. It just wasn't me. I had his uncle called Terry, the drum surgeon. Terry took care of the talent for the memorial. And Rio, that was his bling in the 86ers, man. And now Rio's got to store everything that blings. It's ironic how things happen. It is. And Unkle Dallas, I've known him since I was a teenager, and I played the drums back then. And he asked me, he said, "Am I going to be serious?"
Wait, so they had drums back then?
I'm sure they did, and not hand percussion, actually real drums. And he asked me if I wanted to do it, to make my living in the music business. And I said, "No, I'm going into the Air Force, work on airplanes, and then when I get out, I'll look at it again. I'll approach it again." Well, I was in the Air Force, and of course we had a band right off the bat after we got out of basic training in tech school, and every weekend you could hear us out on the lawn in between the barracks playing rock and roll. And it stayed with me for a while, for a long, long time. And the last 6 years of Unk's life, we became really, really close. And I got back from a project and asked me if he wanted to go down to Galveston, go fishing with me. Well, he's got two very good friends down there that he'd been wanting to see for a while. Dash Beardsley and Norma Jean Nelson, very good close friends of his. I said, "Sure, man." He said, "We'll stay at Norma Jean." I said, "Cool." So we went down there, stopped at Dash's place first. He's the ghost man of Galveston, and really, really down-to-earth, cool guy. And invited us to stay there, and he said, "No, Uncle decided we're going to stay at Norma Jean, just kind of away from town on the island, and real peaceful out there." So we went to Norma Jean's house. Great gal, funny, fabulous cook. Mm-hmm. And Unc's first words when we got there, he said, "You going to fry me up some of those fresh oysters?" Well, she said, "It's already in the makings." So we had fried oysters for dinner about 1 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. And so I went fishing, did my thing fishing. He hung out with Norma Jean and with Dash. And, and I wasn't catching any fish in my old fishing hole. So I said, "The heck with it, I'm just going to hire a guide and go with a guide." I said, "Look, you want to go fishing with me?" He said, "Well, sure." I said, "We're going to go with a guide. You ain't got to do nothing but hold a pole." He caught one fish. You'd have thought he'd have caught a 1,000-pound shark. He really, really thoroughly enjoyed it, but nobody had ever done that with him. And I said, "Really?" I said, "As much as you've done for the people, especially the musicians and the people I said, fishermen, you never went fishing with them?" "No, man." He said, "I didn't have time, The one thing that he did for music that really, really, really touched me is when he went to a city hall, town hall meeting, and it was on TV. I'm not going to say which TV station, but dressed nice. He was soft-spoken, and asked why or what could the city of Longview do to get live music back in East Texas like it used to be. Well, guess what? Boston Chris Barnes here in front of me, Mr. Salyer, the drum surgeon, Rio Wallace, and sometimes myself, we're trying to keep that alive for him. And we've got to keep that going. And I promised him that I would sign a band through my label from East Texas, if there was one around here young enough and worthy enough and really wanted it, that I would do that within a year. It's going to take a little bit longer than that, but I'm not going to say who the band is, but his dream is going to come true.
And he would be calling you a slacker right now.
Oh, no, actually, I think he would really be honored to even be talked about like this.
No. He would be saying, you said a year, Ricky.
Well, yeah, you're right about that, man. Yeah, you are. But just like, I mean, even young when he opened up the Dallas Bottoms out by his house. Terry,
that was the amphitheater, right?
Yes.
That he had
Yes, it was. And he had a sound booth, and everything up in a tree, a little tree house. It was really, really cool out there. And Terry played out there. Probably every time he had anything going out there, Terry's band was out there with Ricky Lynn and some of the other music greats from Longview. We just had a good time. The Battle of the Bands. My band got smoked by Mr. Salyer. They smoked us, man. We were just practicing in the garage, just trying to do something. And the Battle of Bands, we thought, yeah, we're 15 years old, man. This is going to be cool. Well, we got toasted. I think, Terry, didn't your band win that 2-3 years in a row?
I think so.
Yep. Yep. And he was the type of guy. If you're in the music business, no matter what it is, whether you're a label, whether you're a venue owner or a manager or in a band, he fought for the bands till the day he died. Mm-hmm. He actually did that.
Yeah.
And that's how I'm going to always remember him. And next year, before I close, I want to let y'all know that I've got a meeting this Thursday with some investors, and we're going to talk about having a tribute. We haven't decided what the name of it is, but it's going to have Unkle Dallas's name in it, and we're going to do it every year. We're going to shoot for Mod Cobb Activity Center, and we're going to do it every year, and I think it's going to end up being something similar to the T-Bone Walker Blues Festival. It keeps growing and growing and growing is what we're hoping. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, I think that's what's going to help keep live music in East Texas growing, and we can produce some greats like Terry, Ricky Lane, Greg, Dwayne Probst, Monty Pittman.
It's all about the people that Unc mentored, including you three, in his own way. It's all about you guys mentoring the next generation and keeping it going. And I know Unc was a huge proponent of that. It was always paying it forward for him. And whenever he wasn't booked, he was out there somewhere supporting somebody.
Yes, he was.
And if he couldn't, whether it was because of health or some other issues that he had over the years that I won't talk about on this broadcast, but if he couldn't, you can bet your butt he was on social media pushing it that way. It was one way or the other. You knew Unc was going to chime in on something that he cared about, and he was going to put it out there in every fashion he could. In fact, one thing that I noticed about him almost immediately is he would never promote his own shows as much as he promoted his brothers and sisters' shows. If he himself had a show booked, he would always say, if you want to know the location, brother, just send me one of them private message things, and I'll be happy to let you know. But if it was somebody else's show, it was front and center on his page. He would never feel comfortable about letting people know where he himself or any of the projects or bands that he worked on, letting people know on a mass scale where he was playing. And I always found it really humble that somebody could do that and still pack out a building based on private messages and word of mouth and his friends coming through for him the way that he did for so many others. That's the first thing chiefly that I noticed about Unkle Dallas. I'll never forget the first time I sent him a friend request. It was because of the 2015 East Texas Music Awards, and he had been nominated for Lifetime Achievement. And I took it upon myself. I know if you've listened to other episodes of the show, then you know that I've kind of taken it upon myself to try to learn as much as I can about people that I've never heard of. And obviously, everybody's heard of Unkle Dallas. And so when I saw his name there, I was like, yeah, this is my chance. I need to contact him and find out why he's nominated for Lifetime Achievement, find out more, learn more. I'd seen Unc around at the jams and things like that, over the years, and always showing up with a smile on his face. But, when this crazy Yankee from Boston just sends him a friend request out of the blue, he was very, very leery of those random friend requests. And, not 3 seconds after I hit send, I got a ding. My first Unkle Dallas ding. Hey, brother, I don't know who you are, but you probably mistakenly sent me a friend request. And I would just like to know why you would hit that button, sir. And I was like, well, and I went into my spiel because I had talked to so many different people about, doing an article about the different finalists for the awards last year. And I went into my spiel, and he had been disenfranchised by the awards process by that point. And thankfully, before he did pass on, I broke him of that disenchantment.
Well, there's something that happened in between there, Chris, that I don't think you knew about. After your phone call with him, he called me.
Which phone call was this?
After the first one.
Okay.
After the first one.
Yes,
he said, Ricky, do you have any idea who this Boston Chris is?
Yeah.
I said, well, no, Unc, I've been working in Florida, I said, who is he? What's he do? And he told me what the phone conversation was about. I said, let me make a few phone calls and I'll get back with you. And I made 2 phone calls. Mm-hmm. And both of them were the people that knew of Nathan. And I got a good report for both people. And I said, the people told me, and their word's as good as gold to me, so he's all right, man. Mm-hmm. He said, okay, I'll go ahead and let him do an interview with me then. I said, there you go.
I know at that point in time he had also called Rio, and Rio and I had a relationship at that point.
Yeah.
I was managing Rio and booking for him, and with the Jen and Rio thing. So I knew he had told me, he goes, well, I've heard through the grapevine that you're associated with my brother Rio. So I will be giving Mr. Wallace a call directly, and I will get back to you, sir.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah. So tell me about that phone call, if you remember it.
Yeah, I remember that. I said, I just met the dude, and so far so good. I said, he's been straight up about everything he said, about, what he'd already done for the project that I was in. Like within a week, we had won a music award thanks to this dude. Not that music award is like probably, the coolest thing, except for the fact that it looks cool.
It would be really cool to Flavor Flav.
It's awesome. It's enormous. It would look like it'd be an awesome medallion, right?
Absolutely.
But it weighs like
you put
20
it on
pounds.
like an Oldsmobile or something like that.
It'd be like wearing a Les Paul all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
But
and that took me a week.
Yeah, it took a week. I'm not kidding. That was like one of the first gigs you booked for us was that.
Yep.
So I thought, yeah, man, so far so good.
Yeah, not to toot my own horn, but I took a rock and roll genius guitar player and won him an International Country Music Award.
Yeah, that doesn't happen all the time. Oh, wait, that does happen all the time, doesn't it? I just don't hear about it.
That is pretty innovative.
So, and so several days go by, and he comes back to me, and, I didn't know how he operated. I found out about all this later, much, much later. In fact, I didn't meet you, Ricky, until after he'd already passed.
Yep, that's true.
And we've become very, very close since then, as you know, and I know you feel the same way. I look at Ricky Khoury like a brother, and really, honestly, this is my family sitting here. I've been accepted into this East Texas music community like I've been here all along, and I really appreciate that from the bottom of my heart, and I know that has a lot to do with Unkle Dallas as well, because he spoke up for me, and he backed me, and he his words gave me a lot of credibility in this community, and I know that, and I will never ever ever forget it.
He did not mince words.
Yeah, and he came back to me and he says, I'd really like to meet with you, brother. And I said, okay, well, that sounds good, And one thing, if you knew Unc at all, you knew that if he called you and you answered, you better not have anything on the agenda for the next, say, 90 minutes, because you are not getting off the phone with him for 90 minutes, if you're lucky.
Well, now, when he called me, he said, are you busy, Ricky? First words I said, are you busy? I said, never too busy for you, Unc.
Right.
I'd always tell him that.
Right.
And that, because he did so much for me as far as my label part of it, because when I first started it over 3 years ago, I mean, I was pretty much in the blind. I knew about the music business. I knew about bands. I knew about genres. I knew about how getting bands in certain venues, how they're supposed to be gotten. Some things I had questions about. Radio promotion, social media, I didn't have a clue about. And if it wasn't for him, my label I'd have been belly up within the first year. And he actually helped me a lot.
And he was the kind of guy that was all self-educated on stuff like
yes,
that.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, just, new things come along like social media, and he was always front and center and learning how that stuff went.
Terry, you remember when he first come to Longview, and got with the Axberg brothers. I mean, and Terry was like, he met Unc before any of us younger ones did.
And Uncle is always he's been a stickler for detail and paying attention to detail on everything. As when he went into the thing about the friending thing on Facebook.
Yeah.
I mean, he wants to know everything about everything
right.
to make a move, But that's he's so wild and everything. You wouldn't think that he plays it that safe, but he does.
Oh yeah, he absolutely did.
Yeah.
And I mean, once you have his trust, you best make sure you. I mean, it's a full-time job to keep it.
Oh, absolutely.
And I mean, don't lose it, because if you do, you're on the outside, and that's just the way it is.
That's right.
I mean, he was very difficult to get his trust, but once you did, you better not lose it.
In the late 70s, I'll never forget this, at the old 300 Club on Highway 80. Came on stage. All right, second set. First set, he was all fully clothed and everything. He come out in the second set. He had a striped straw cowboy hat on, his boots, his underwear, and a chainsaw in his hand. Didn't have a chain on it. He fired that chainsaw. Ring, ring,
Just
ring.
don't name the song.
Oh, I'm not going to say that. Everybody from Longview that were in the music scene back then, they know the name of the song. And he come out with that chainsaw, and he went to a table, and he was holding it on the table. I mean, we were all teenagers then, everybody scattered, and the venue filled up full of that white smoke, like the two strokes are.
Right.
I was scared to death, like to peed my pants. When he revved it up, I'm like, oh my God, and then I stopped and turned around and looked. He just had that big old smile on his face.
And that was way before Jackal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Uncle was ahead of his time.
Yes,
Yeah.
he was. He was.
Hey, he showed up at gigs driving a hearse.
Yeah.
When
I met him when I was 16, he picked me up in a hearse, and he took me to a club that he was playing at, and he said, "Hey man, do you want to sit in with a real band?" Because anyway, I was playing with a bunch of kids, obviously, because I was 16, and so I was actually pretty intimidated, because these cats were like 32, 35, 40,
Yeah.
whatever. They've been playing their whole lives. They're like, well, they've been playing longer than I've been alive by a long shot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
In our
I
40s.
thought, well, so I'm not sure. I don't even remember if I sat in that night, because I think I just got the jitters and thought, oh, this is not a good idea. But maybe I did. Played Hey Joe, but it's hard to remember. But I do remember watching Unkle Dallas play, and just his relaxation and confidence, and just kind of like, hey, nothing's a big deal, man.
Yeah, it was definitely very.
And just real smooth and
Yeah, and contagious.
yeah,
Very contagious.
But that's the first time I heard that song in question that will remain titleless.
Right.
But
The song that shall not
yeah.
be named.
yeah, it was on a cassette player in his hearse.
If anybody actually hears this episode and you want to know the name of the song, you can come up to me anywhere and ask me, and I will tell you.
As long as there are no
And
children around.
and that will let me know that you've listened. But you should know the name of it. It might rhyme with stick. I don't know. So I know that, Unkle Dallas, if he took a liking to somebody like he did with Mr. Wallace over here in that story, if he liked you and he saw potential in you, then he drove that train right till the very end. Would you say that with
Absolutely.
with just about anybody he met?
Yeah. Absolutely.
One thing Uncle used to tell me a lot is, it's a lot harder to get out of here than you think, but it's a lot harder than that to stay. And I was thinking about that. I was like, so one night I said, a couple days ago, you told me that it's harder to get out of the town than I may think, but it's harder to stay. What did you mean by that? He said, well, if you think about some of the people that have come out of the Longview and East Texas area, like Monty Pittman, like, Ricky Lynn and all these other people.
Don Henley.
He named a bunch of others. He said all these folks, they made it big, and they got out of East Texas and made a name for himself, and that was really hard to do. He goes, but I'm living proof that it was harder to stay here. And I was just like, wow.
You know, Chris, there was my favorite quote from any musician in the history of music. So my favorite quote, and I'm sure Terry and Rio remember it, that Uncle had that said, I'll never forget it. He said it back in the late 70s. He said, Ricky, playing the music is the easiest part.
Mm-hmm.
And when he told me that back then, I didn't get it. But of course now, you know, 10, 15 years later, then I got it. I'm like, wow, man. It makes so much sense.
And he lived
such
that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's such a simple quote.
Right.
And he hit it head on.
Yeah.
And I mean, what he meant about that is just, you know, actually being on there and playing the music and performing is the end of the road. That's what you strive for. That's what you're made for. It's everything that comes before that and after it that's difficult. It's the booking. It's the haggling with the venue owners. It's making sure you get the pay that you deserve to get. It's dealing with fans and rowdiness and all of this other stuff. Stalkers, right. You know, and that's, I think, what he meant. You know, it was almost like a relief when he was able to just sit behind his drum set and just let loose. You know?
That's when he was home. He could relax.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
That's when I feel the most comfortable. I feel like I'm really myself when I'm playing guitar. Otherwise, I feel like I'm an alien.
Yeah.
So I think he kind of felt that way about himself too, really.
Yeah.
Because
And I mean, one thing I did notice over the
he was really different.
very short months that I did know him is, you know, he. I mean, this might sound bad, but I mean, in a way, he was high maintenance as a friend, because.
No.
Well, let me explain myself. Let me explain myself on that. Okay. There was a posting on Facebook where he needed help with his garden because of his health, and nobody showed up. You know, and just by reading his postings on there, it devastated him. You know, and looking back at it and reading those thoughts back, I don't know if you guys have read it. I know Ricky has.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, looking back at those thoughts. It's just it breaks my heart.
That was going on, Boss Chris, when I was having some health issues 2 years ago, and Unc was the one of all people that would come get me and drive me to the hospital and stay with me through the procedure and then drive me home. And in the first couple of times he did that, you know, I was already passed out in my bed asleep, and it was like, you know, 9, 10 o'clock. Been asleep for a while. I didn't even know he was still there, but he stayed to make sure I was okay.
Right.
That's the type of guy he was.
Yeah.
And that when he was talking about that certain instance that for his garden, needing help in his garden, I said, well, Uncle, I'll come over and help you.
Mm-hmm.
He said, no, you will not. You take care of your health.
Because of your health.
Plenty of other people out there that can come over and help.
Yeah, I mean,
I
I didn't.
man.
It wasn't really high maintenance that I was trying to talk about. You know, that's not what I meant. What I meant was, it was almost like, you know, he had done so much for so many people.
Right.
And then when he needed a little bit of help, he struggled to get it. I don't know what the wording is for that. I know it's not high maintenance.
He was reaching out
right.
for help.
You know, and this was a year before I met him, and I know people started to comment on that posting when they found out that he passed away. So obviously it was on my timeline, and I read the whole thing, you know, just tears streaming down my face, because, I mean, here you have a guy that is legitimately a music legend. Regardless if it's internationally, nationally, local, doesn't matter to me at all. You know, this is a guy that helped so many people, and here you know, because of his health and because of things, and he loved his garden more than just about anything on the planet, you know, and, you know, just watching him struggle, you know, and reaching out for help, it broke my heart. I don't know why I'm thinking about that right now, but
that was a thorn in his side at the end.
Yeah.
He was still. The last time I actually talked to him, he said, "Rick, I don't know what I'm going to do about my garden." He said, "It needs so much work done on it." I said, "When I get back to work, after the next project, when I come home, I'll be healthy. You don't worry about it. If I got to pay somebody to come over and help you, we're going to get it done, because that Garden of Love is like a Longview monument. Wouldn't you agree, Terry?
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
there's people that would come from out of state just to see and walk through the Garden of Love with him.
Right.
You know, and it. I mean, he had some stuff that he had bought when he was over in Thailand with Hunt.
Yeah.
Hunt, not Chuck Hunt, but anyway, with him and his wife. and he bought some really, really nice ornamental big stuff for that garden.
Yeah.
And he went over there to find his soul.
Yeah, it was a spiritual trip.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And when he went out on his own, and went and talked to some of these, these people that were like, I guess, I don't know what you call them, but they're like an Indian chief.
Guru.
Well, guru or whatever.
Shaman.
Something similar to that, and he would go and spend several days with these, particular people.
Well, I know he met the Dalai Lama while
Absolutely.
he was out there.
And that's how he found his soul.
Hmm.
Music was his thriving. That's what kept his soul going. But when he went over to Thailand, that's when he really found his soul and found peace with himself.
Right.
And that was a 6-hour conversation. I loved every minute of it.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm just like a sponge soaking it all in. I'm like, wow, man. That's cool. That's really cool.
Well, I can tell you, in reference to the Garden of Love, and this comes back to a conversation Rio and I had not too long after I first made contact with Unc. I guess the phone calls between y'all and him had already occurred because he had invited me over to his house and the garden and all of that. And, I'm green as chicken crap at this point. I don't know anything about the business, I know Unc's a legend, but I don't know the context of the importance of getting an invite to Unkle Dallas's house, So I called Rio, or maybe we talked at one of your gigs or whatever, and I said, yeah, Unkle Dallas has invited me over to his garden. And Rio says, how long did it take you to say yes? I said, well, I haven't told him anything yet. He's like, you have his number, right? I was like, well, yeah, he gives it to me every 14 seconds. Because that's just, call me on my landline. This is my landline, 903. It's 3:39 p.m. So, and Rio was like, well, you better call him because that invite's not going to be there forever.
That's right.
So I called him right then and there. I said, Unc, just let me know when I'm there. He's like, so, we went over there, my girlfriend Louise and I, we went over and met the man for the first time, and I'll let you describe that.
It was an unbelievable experience. His home was amazing. He had all these artifacts from Thailand. He had these collections from other places in Europe, all over the place that he had traveled. Unfortunately, when we went, it was late October, and the garden was closed for business. But we were kind of peeking through the window at the garden, and he was telling us so much about it. He's like, you guys have got to come back in spring. We're going to hang out in the Garden of Love. It was pretty amazing. What stuck out to me about Unkle Dallas was I had never met the man before. All the communication that had happened between himself and Boston was between himself and Boston. But as soon as I came into that home, I felt like I was welcome, more than just welcomed into a home, but this anticipated guest. I mean, he was so excited that we were there. He was so excited to share his home and his surroundings and his time with us. I mean, he really made each person that was around him feel like they were the star for a while. And I found that
That's a good way of putting it.
very humbling.
Yeah.
It was a very meaningful time. Like I said, I didn't get to spend a lot of time with Unkle Dallas, but what I did has stuck with me, and I know it will for the rest of my life.
And I can tell you a little bit more about that experience in the context of it. Uncle was starting a new project around that time with Mark Claybrook and Mark Lumpkin, and he was going to call that the Romeo Bush Band. And I was having some success with different acts around the area. Yeah, I know. But anyway, I was having a little bit of success booking for some different acts around the area, and he had found out about that. And Rio had been one of those acts with Jen, and there were a couple other bands that I was doing pretty good with. And he had reached out to me to possibly do some booking for him. And this blew my mind. I mean, you can imagine, this is, to me, this is like, the Jimi Hendrix, the Alice Cooper of East Texas. I mean, this was a larger-than-life character, and with a heart of gold and made you feel like you were the king of the world every time you talked to him, whether it was live in person or, backstage or on the phone or in text message or whatever. And for him to actually think that I had a little bit of value and could offer him, some help with a project is just, even to this day, is mind-boggling to me. Unfortunately, due to different scheduling conflicts and things like that, it didn't work out right away, the booking with that particular project. I know that the first time they were going to play together was February 5th at Back Porch. And, of course, Unc had passed away, I think, the weekend before that.
That's right.
And so his last gig ended up being at Circle M, I think, in Big Sandy. And who was? Do you remember who that was with, Ricky?
George Wood,
George, and was Mark
Owen, and
So basically the Del Rio band. Well,
half
George,
of it.
George
Well, yeah,
and
three,
Mark.
yeah,
Well,
three
see,
of them.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yep.
And I know that, speaking of Mark Lumpkin again, Mark Lumpkin and Rio and Unkle Dallas had the 86er thing going on for a while.
That was a trip.
I can imagine.
That was cool.
Because, in my experience, two of the best bass players I've heard in East Texas, one's sitting right here in front of me, and the other is Mark Lumpkin.
Yeah, Mark is amazing.
He brings something to bass that's just ridiculous to me.
Scat sing and play like George Benson.
Yeah.
And
a
really
six-string
do it.
bass. Yeah.
I just feel really.
Six-string bass with those crazy frets going
Yeah.
opposite.
He actually sounds like Frank Zappa.
Oh, he loves
When he
Frank Zappa
sings.
though.
When he sings,
Yeah.
his voice would remind me of
Yeah, there's a good reason for that.
Terry. Back in the day, you were around when we had a bunch of us gone off. We'd already graduated high school and doing our thing, and you were still around, and you did some touring with Unc, if I'm not mistaken, didn't you?
Well, we did a lot of gigs together around here, really.
Right.
Because, yeah, go ahead.
How many venues was there on Highway 80 from the East End to White Oak?
This was not long ago. He came over to my house, and we just made this trek across town there, and we came all the way over here past Gregton, past the loop there, and we started counting the places where there were music venues for live music, all the way from there out almost to my place in Hallsville. And we counted how many that there used to be places for live music.
38 or 39?
It's 38 or 39 places.
On Highway 80 alone?
Yeah, it's on Highway 80, and within a block or two of Highway 80. There's one or two that set back off the
Right.
road a bit. But,
Yes, sir.
But
We got work to do.
yeah, and now it has gone to to three maybe. And one time, Al and I came back in town about 6 or 8 months ago from somewhere, and it was on Saturday night early, and we had a Saturday night off, and we almost didn't know what to do, And I said, "Let's go out, man. Let's go catch some live music." Oh, okay. Well, we looked in the phone, or Google or whatever, and then we drove around looking and called places. There was not a live band in Longview that night.
Just karaoke, huh?
Yeah, on Saturday night.
Saturday night?
On Saturday night, and this was about 6 or 8 months ago.
Well, I know in the last year that's changed quite a bit. The karaoke on Saturday night has kind of gone by the wayside a little bit.
Well, that's good. I'm glad. I'm glad to hear that they're having live music now.
I'm pretty proud of that, actually. Like the other night, we were trying to figure out if there was any karaoke on Saturday night, and I'm thinking, because you guys may not know this, but I was one of those evil karaoke hosts at one point in time, and before I saw the light.
You were forgiven.
Thank you.
You've graduated.
I've graduated.
Yes! Well, I'm going to tell you something.
When do I get the key to the city?
Quote, unquote, Unkle Dallas's exact words about karaoke. He said, "Ricky, karaoke has been the ruination of live music in this country."
Mm-hmm.
He was right.
It's one of them.
Well, yeah, one of them. But it's a key.
Well, one of the guys I
contributor.
work with says, how does he put it, David Smith? The 4 worst things to ever happen to country music are karaoke, rap, pop country, and something else.
Probably karaoke again.
Could be.
It'd make number 1 and number 4.
Justin Bieber.
It might have been Justin Bieber. And then one of the other members of his band will always pipe in, "Yeah, he keeps saying that, but I have live video of him doing 3 of those 4. So, yeah. So, is there any, we're getting pretty long here. Is there anything you guys would like to add? I know we talked about the thing you have in the works, Ricky, for the Unkle Dallas annual thing. And I imagine people can probably go to Tazbol Records on Facebook to get information for that once you're ready.
Well, that's
to
going to be
announce it.
kept. That's not going to be released to the public until everything's in place.
And when it is released, where will it be released?
It will be released on social media. It'll also be released on radio and a couple of the TV media stations as well, local stations here in Longview.
Well, if you need somebody to do the radio version of that, I have a face made for radio, so you just let me know.
All right, guys. We've talked a bit about Unkle Dallas and the influence that he's had musically in this region. But we've also touched a little bit on the fact that his influence went beyond music. I'd like each of you to just spend a couple of minutes maybe and tell us what it was that he did that had the most impact on you personally. What was the influence that he had on you that has been the most meaningful?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is confidence. There were several messages that he left on my phone that I wish I still had, but there's one mix that I made with some really trippy stuff behind it, but I put Unkle Dallas's message in there, like on this repeat thing where he was saying, "Rock, warrior, my rock, Rio Wallace, rock, warrior. You know, it's just like this, boom, in the background, you know. So it was confidence. He called me his rock warrior, and that just always made me feel like, man, I have not wasted my time. You know, because he's heard it all. And he for some reason, he just loved to build people up, really, basically. And that's, I think that should be an influence on everyone. Everyone should be like that.
I agree.
Build up rather than tear down.
I agree. Who wants to go next?
I guess when I really knew Uncle was sincere about our friendship is when he took me and made sure that I had a way to the hospital, stay with me through the procedures, and drove me home and stayed with me. That right there showed me what a real true friend he really was. And that's totally outside of music. You know, it's just the kind of guy he was.
And he wanted to be there when you were at your worst.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Terry?
Well, I'd have to start back at the beginning, but I'll make it short. Is that in 1974, I just turned 19 years old and came back to town. I was playing with a band called First State Bank in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and came back to Mike Black's Northtown Music. And Mike Black is sort of a legend around here too. Yep. But and of course he's gone now, but left many years ago. But Mike said, "Hey, I want to introduce you to this guy." And this guy just came in, and the place just all of a sudden, it went from totally, like a better word, totally dead to just really livened up. And it was Unkle Dallas. And of course, he was going by different names back then. And that was back before the day, you know. And then
love doing that.
So, and I met Uncle and everything. I talked to him a bit, and then he took off, and I was about to take off, and Mike says, "Well, what'd you think? What'd you think?" I said, "He's a little exuberant, you know."
That's a great word.
You know, and I was so laid back because I didn't quite know how to take Uncle yet. But I mean, this is 2016. That was 1974, and he became one of my best friends. You know, through all those years, and I saw him go and grow through so many things as he did me too, and we helped each other with a lot of things through the years. And one of the things about Uncle was the camaraderie that he wanted to help East Texans to be able to form and feel and have among each other, you know. And that was one of the biggest things that he ever did, is he made that, and that's huge. It's so big that, I mean, I can't even describe it, you know. And you know it, you feel it, you see it among the players here in the Longview area. Mm-hmm. And you know, a lot of people think how outrageous he is, and he's pretty outrageous in a lot of ways, really eccentric kind of, you know. Mm-hmm. And then Billy and Sammy and I were talking one day, and we got thinking about it, and I said, man, Uncle is becoming one of the most normal people I've ever really known, you know. So now I don't know what to think about it anymore. I'm really confused now. But one thing that he really did for me was he gave me the title, the surgeon.
The drum surgeon.
Yeah, the drum surgeon, or the surgeon of drums, yeah. And so Uncle titled me that, and I consider it just a great honor that he did that, you know. And so people call me the surgeon, you know, to this day because of that.
Yep.
And,
Do you guys mind if I answer that too?
Not
It
at all.
was meant for you as well.
Okay. I'd like to just say that, you know, I knew him far less than you guys did and far shorter than y'all did. And I feel very deprived of that, to be honest. I feel deprived that I met him so late in his life because after the feeling out period and the phone calls and the background check, you know, and all that, I feel like Unkle Dallas and I were kind of kindred spirits in a way because we were both night owls. We spent a lot of time on social media overnight because we'd be the only two awake. And he was a thinking man. And he did his thinking a lot of the times at night when everybody else was asleep. And anybody who knows me really well knows I'm the same way. I don't sleep very well at night. I feel like that's an opportunity for me to get things done. And Uncle was the same way. He could get things done overnight because nobody was bothering him or whatever the reason may be. I don't know if he had trouble sleeping or not. I didn't really know him that well. But we had that same drive, motivation, and passion for local music. From the moment I started walking out into this community, I fell in love. I fell in love with everything that all of you guys do, not just you three, but I mean, you guys know just how deep the community goes. And, you know, I feel like, and this is outside of music, I feel like when Unkle Dallas kind of welcomed me into that community, it allowed me to feel safe there, if that makes any sense. Because Unc had a way of doing that background check and making sure that somebody was worthy of this thing that he loved so much. Oh, yeah. And that's the East Texas music and here in this community. And to be welcomed into that community by someone of his stature and of his passion level is just mind-boggling to me. And I think about it every single night. Now, Ricky Khoury and I have talked about the Unkle Dallas Ding over the last year, and what that is to me is Unc had this way of going through the chat feature on Facebook, which is the absolute worst thing that Facebook has ever invented in the history of social media. Because what that does is it shows somebody who has no chance of sleeping who is in the same boat as him. And when he would click on that chat feature, guess what? My Facebook name starts with a B. Alphabetically, I'm pretty high up on that list, I would say. So it's chat active, Boston Chris, great. Ding, there's my Unkle Dallas ding. And, of course, if my phone ever made a noise between the hours of 12 and 6 a.m., I guarantee you it was Unkle Dallas sending me a message wondering if I was awake and if I could call him on my landline, brother. It's 2:12 a.m. And that's how he talked. You were guaranteed of two things every time you talked to Unkle Dallas. You were guaranteed to know what the time was, and you were guaranteed to know what his landline number was. That is a guarantee. It could be a message. It could be a voicemail. You could be talking to him in person, and he will tell you what time it is. And the only reason why I'm saying this right here and right now is because I know there's people out there listening that are still struggling with his loss. And I'm saying these things because they're true and because they're funny. And why are they true and they're funny is because Unkle Dallas made them that way. That's what Unc did to show his uniqueness. He knew that that's what set him apart from other people. And that was his way of making sure that nobody ever forgot who he was. The reason why at least two of us at this table still have voicemails of his on their phone is because we don't ever want to forget his voice. Because his voice was probably the most important thing to him.
Actually, I beg to differ, Chris, because he told me this last conversation we had, last two conversations we had. He said, Ricky, He said, I'm worried about one thing. I said, what's that, Unc? He said, I'm worried people are going to forget about me. I said, don't you worry about that. I said, you're a musical legend around here. I said, if I've got anything to do with it, you'll never be forgotten around here. And he okay. He had that, like a relieved sound in his voice. But the one thing that used to always tickle me about him, we get to talking about country and Western music. Real quick. Now, Ricky, you know people they love country and Western because they love to dance. And that's what I want to close on.
And since we started this broadcast with Unkle Dallas's voice, we shall also end this broadcast with Unkle Dallas's voice.
Hey, Bubba. It's Unkle Dallas again. It's 3:38 p.m. Saturday afternoon. Hope you're staying warm. Hope everything's good for you. I just got out of the shower trying to kind of dry out with this fan on in the heater. And I'm going to be out of here pretty soon. I have to be in Big Sandy at 5:30, supposedly. That's what they say. So I'll probably be leaving here about a little bit till 5 p.m. It's 3:39. Just calling you back. Thought I might catch you. Thank you. Bye.
No, thank you, Unc.
Love you.
We are ETX ROCKS!